Today, we're going to spend some time in peace with Daphne Fuller.
Daphne is the founder of Black Minds in Meditation, working with Black women and families to assist with mental health and wellness issues.
She has been a therapist and counselor for over a decade. Daphne, welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's so great that you're here, and thank you for spending time with us. Daphne, you created Black Minds I'm going to say that again. Black Minds in Meditation, with a focus of it's a global platform with a product business that offers an integrative and indigenous approach to education, healing, and transformation. I hope I got that right. And you work also, it also incorporates meditation, sound, yoga, mental health practices, which is all fantastic. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, so thank you for asking me about it. So Black Minds of Meditation was founded in 2016. I started on my yoga journey. I started earlier on in life, but it really didn't connect with me because I didn't understand the concepts of it. So in 2016, I signed up for a yoga teacher training. And during that training, I experienced some peace that I'd never experienced before. And I experienced a connection with God that I'd never experienced before. I'm also a mental health therapist. And so at that point, it was just like mind blowing to me. Like, my people need this. And I didn't really know at the time that there were a lot of Black and brown folks that were actually practicing yoga. So that's the main reason I created it. I just wanted us to have an opportunity to know what this medicine felt like, know what this medicine is, and be able to undo some of the traumas and things that have been trapped in our bodies for so many years.
When you say that you experienced something or felt something that you'd never felt before, describe that for me. What do you mean?
Well, in my opinion, and I guess research kind of shows it too, in the Western society, we focus a lot on our cognition. So we try to think through most of our problems. And even going through therapy school, when I got my bachelor's and my master's degree, we truly focused on talk therapy. It was all about talking through our issues. It was about disputing cognitive distortions and all these things. Well, when I got on my yoga mat, I didn't have to think through anything. I didn't have to talk through anything. All I had to do was go on my mat with whatever was going on in my life, and whatever was going on, by the time I got off the mat, it was either figured out, not even because I tried to figure it out. It just kind of happened. But there was this release over me that I'd never experienced before. There was a peace that I'd never experienced.
And that's what I'm really interested in, Daphne. So where did that connection to God come into being for you? Like, what can you explain? Or maybe it was just this feeling that you had, but can you just dive into that a little deeper?
Yeah, so connection with self, right? If we don't know where we come from and who we are, it, in my opinion, makes it difficult for us to move forward. Well, in me knowing where I came, or practicing yoga assisted me with being able to connect to nature. It assisted me with being able to connect back to some of the ancestral practices that my ancestors actually implemented in life that I really had no clue about, or that were lost over time. So just being able to be in nature, being able to take my shoes off. I'm a country girl. I'm from Georgia. So I grew up running around barefoot and having a good time. But over time, people would shun that and they would look at it like, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with it. And this is weird. Well, me being able to take my shoes off, even just on the yoga mat or going outside and doing yoga with no shoes on, it connected me to the earth. When we look at chakras, which is a part of yoga, we have our root chakra, and the root chakra is at the base of our spine. but it's also our connection, our feet and our legs. So in being able to stand on the ground, you're able to connect to the earth. You're able to release free radicals from the earth. And at that point, it just helped me understand that nature is God, or nature
Mm.
is a part of God, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do. And earlier in the conversation, you mentioned the word trauma.
Uh-huh.
Um, Either facing the trauma that the African American population in this country has gone through since prior to this country even being a country. How does and you mentioned the fact that you didn't realize that there were other Black practitioners doing what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is it about our history that you were perhaps helping cure?
Or undo. Mm-hmm.
Andy.
So when we look at the traumas that our people have experienced, we know that trauma becomes trapped in our bodies. It rewrites our DNA, which is also called epigenetics. And so that those things can be passed down to us without us not doing anything other than being born. So we might have certain responses, or someone may stutter, or they may overthink a situation, or just different ways that we may speak to each other, or treat one another. For example, it just kind of makes me think about rearing a child. Well, back in the day, it was safer for a parent to discipline the child to make sure that the child didn't get out of line, because if they did, then the repercussions or the harm may be worse. So just the passing down of things such as whoopings or beatings, all those things can be passed down in the DNA, or even just kind of flinching or being hyper vigilant. Stress also. Stress is passed down from generation to generation. So I've noticed that with yoga, and research shows it, and even with sound meditation, which I also offer, it helps to rewrite our DNA, and it also helps to recalibrate our nervous system.
Mm-hmm. And so I think probably, Daphne, that's where we refer to this as medicine, sort of a preventive medicine, or what takes you along that path of thinking?
What takes me along that path of thinking? Well,
Where you're referring to it as medicine.
yeah. The experiences that I've had with it, and the experiences that other people have had with it. For example, I was experiencing a panic attack. Maybe I think it was back in 2019. I experienced a severe panic attack. I was in a store with my mom, and she had no idea. Well, I've never been prescribed with medication for a panic or anything, and it's not something that I experience on a daily basis, but I could see where some medication would have assisted that. Well, I didn't have any medication to take, nor was I trying to think of or get any. I went home and I grabbed my singing bowl, and I just started playing it. And as I began to play it, my chest began to open up, because during the panic attack, my chest was really tight and it was so much pain. I just wanted to fold over and I couldn't breathe. Well, as soon as I started playing the bowl, it just felt like the pain washed away, and my heart opened up, and my entire body just relaxed.
Hmm.
And to me, that is medicine.
Yeah.
Do you believe that people of color have a sort of a unique need for what you are um, prescribing for them with your medicinal cures?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that I have medicinal cures, right? I have to be very careful with that. I'm not prescribing anything either. But yeah, I definitely feel that it could be beneficial. At the same time, it needs to be trauma informed. So it's not a one size fit all. It may fit someone, but it may not fit someone else. And even with this work, and we'll call it work instead of medicine, okay?
Yep.
Even with this work, as I said, we have to be careful who we're offering it to. We need to make sure that we're checking their trauma history. We need to make sure that we're checking to see if there's just a whatever it is that might be going on. Because if you take someone with a very heightened nervous system and you relax it very quickly, you see that drop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That can be very harmful and damaging.
It's like getting the bends.
So
that's
yeah,
a good,
like if
good analogy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you have somebody with go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry, please continue that.
I was just going to say, if you have somebody that's extremely hyper vigilant, that's always on go and always in a hurry and always busy, and then you take them and you slow them down and their nervous system goes from a fight or flight response to like a rest and digest, it can be very traumatic.
Okay, so that really explains a lot, because I have some friends that are like that. They're just wired in a very high vibration, and they just meditation and yoga just doesn't mix with them because they just can't seem to relax. I didn't know. That makes sense to me. That makes so. Having said that, how do you bring people together? What does that look like for you? What kind of groups do you attract? How do you serve them? Can you just sort of explain that, what you do in that way?
Yes. So I have a couple platforms on Instagram and then Facebook, as well as my physical office. So this is actually my therapy practice. My therapy practice is Therapeutic Solutions and Wellness. So we provide mental health services here, but it also serves as a space for Black Minds and Meditation to have gatherings. So those gatherings, again, we do them here or we do them online. It just really depends on the needs of the people.
Can I ask you, let's say these names: Trayvon Martin, Tyree Nichols, George Floyd. I could name you 100 others.
Yeah.
When an event like that, takes place in this nation, what sort of effect does it have on you? But also, what kind of effect does it have on the people who come to see you? What do they talk to you about? And obviously, you were talking about trauma earlier. I mean, people need to, you said fight or flight a minute ago. Fight or flight for people like me really isn't part of my lexicon. It's never really confronted me. I'm sure that's not the case for many of the young men and women, or the parents, perhaps the mothers in particular, that you counsel.
Yeah. So I believe that all of us in America at some time have experienced the fight, flight, or freeze, and it has been passed down from all of us, because as we look at just kind of how the country was developed, even if you don't feel like you experience it on a day-to-day basis, which is, I'm sure, true for you, I'm sure somewhere in your DNA there is something that has been rewritten that has trauma attached to it. In terms of the folks that I work with, it's to the point now where it's not normal, but seeing it over and over and over again, it re-traumatizes, but then it also causes desensitization.
Oh, yeah.
As these videos are just going around. The last video with Tyree, I did not, may his soul rest in peace and may he rise in power. I didn't watch the video. I didn't find a need to watch the video because I know how harming and damaging watching the video can be. Even if you don't think it, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it just perpetuates what's been going on for so long. So it's challenging and it's difficult for people, but we're resilient. So we just, we keep moving forward and just trying to find ways so that it stops happening and ways that we can actually work through it and allow our bodies and our spirits to heal as well through the collective work that Black Minds in Meditation does and here at Therapeutic Solutions and Wellness.
And then Daphne, how do you start with somebody that approaches you? How do you sort of you mentioned that you sort of gather information so you see where they're at, and then how do you take them through the process, an experience? Let's say if they've never meditated or they've never done yoga before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's kind of different depending on if it's a one-on-one session or if it's a group session. Typically, when it's a one-on-one session, I definitely have more time to do an assessment prior to offering any other services. If it's a therapy session, I can definitely do a full clinical assessment. That way I have a full trauma history and I know most of the things I need to know are the things that people feel comfortable with telling me. I also notice people's body. I notice their breath. I notice how they're sitting. And that allows me to be able to ask certain questions, which helps to take my work in the way that it needs to go for the individual. With group, I typically, when it's sound, I typically have them fill out a form that gives me more information about what's going on with them and their reason for wanting or needing to be seen. And then during our group classes, I'm just really aware of what's going on and using a lot of invitational speech. So I invite you to notice this. I invite you if you would like. So people receive a lot of different choices, knowing that they don't have to do something that they don't want to do or they don't feel comfortable doing. And one of the things I tell folks in yoga class, number one, this is not a performance. Number two, this is all about you. And number three, if you do nothing but breathe and lie down on your mat during the entire session, you have done yoga and you've shown up for yourself in a mighty way.
Mm-hmm.
What do they what do they tell you? What do they talk about? What sorts of traumas are you referring to?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can look at childhood traumas, sexual abuse, physical abuse. The military population has tons of things that they're experiencing, wars and loss of their battle buddies, their friends, their loved ones, racial trauma. There's been quite a few here just in the past year. My office actually sits right outside, right downtown, so I can actually look out my window and see the market house, which was damaged during the protests for George Floyd. But yeah, so just those different things are things that folks talk about. Even relationship trauma, people often don't realize that domestic violence and just really unhealthy relationships can cause trauma as well.
Are any of these things unique to the Black community?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Any of them? I believe they're unique to humankind, honestly.
Yeah.
I would say, as far as uniqueness, perhaps the amount of racial trauma. The racial trauma that we're experiencing is definitely unique to us here in the States, but it's definitely a global thing as well.
Yeah.
And Daphne, on your journey, so you found meditation. Were you fairly young when you first? You mentioned it when you first started meditating.
I was somewhere around 20. I can't really pinpoint the exact time, but I just had my son and I was trying to find peace because I was depressed and I was anxious. So somewhere around then.
And so did you try other things before you landed on meditation and yoga, or was that the place you sort of zoomed in on?
Philippians 4:6-7, that kind of helped me, as well as just having support of friends or family. I can't really think of anything other than that.
What's Philippians 4:5-7? What is that?
4:6-7.
Yes.
Yeah, it means do not be anxious. Oh, gosh, do not worry or be anxious of anything, but in everything give God prayer and supplication. So I used to be really anxious and really worried and overwhelmed all the time. So what I would always just tell myself, do not worry or be anxious. Do not worry or be anxious. Give God prayer and supplication. And that helped me until I got to yoga.
Wow.
You know, I'm sort of reticent to share some of this, but in my previous life, I have also, when we were talking about fight or flight earlier, I mean, I have been to many of those places where the fight or flight sort of mindset is right in front of you because of the fact you're either in a war zone or a riot or maybe even a flood or a hurricane or something. And I guess what you are talking about, and I want you this, I'm going to try to phrase this as a question, but I guess what you're talking about is that in some way, the physical, the breathing and the physical act of doing yoga somehow can what salve the nervousness, the PTSD that you are going through from these situations. Is how do you overcome that? Because I know that it's something that I struggled with a lot, in the wake of the Gulf Wars and Afghanistan and those types of things. And of course, you're supposed to be like macho and everything in today's society too. How do you overcome
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you overcome that, right? So I would say that yoga is not a fix all. I recommend it in combination with trauma treatment for sure. So it really just depends on the individual. I would say that yoga allows you to activate your life force energy, that energy inside of you, that knowing inside of you, even when the traumas have happened. It's like a light. It wakes up or cuts on a light inside of you that allows you to breathe. That even when you feel like you can't breathe, just by moving or being open to opening up or allowing yourself to just connect and being in the moment, yoga allows you or welcomes you to be in the moment. And so if we're in the moment, we're not in the war zone. If we're in the moment, we're not looking at the videos of slain people, right? But we're here. I'm in the moment with you right now. And in this moment, I can notice my feet connected to the floor. In this moment, I can notice my seat holding me and supporting me. In this moment, I have permission to access my breath. And so yoga invites us to do those things. It's not just the movements and the poses that everybody sees. It's not about a performance, but it's about giving yourself an opportunity to recognize your humanness, being able to recognize your connection with everybody, regardless of race, color, or creed. It's just about allowing yourself to be right here. And knowing that if we need to go back to that stuff, because those things are still going to come back up, then we can go back to them and we're going to have the support to go back to them. But right now we can be here.
That's so well said, Daphne. And in this moment, which I was going to ask you about the brain being so busy that it's hard to capture that, but with breathing and knowing that you're in the moment, you're capable of doing. I saw that in you. So in this very moment, and we ask our guests this every week, why do you believe in people?
Why do I believe in people? I believe in people because people believe in me. I believe in people because people are me and I am people. I believe in people because there's been some amazing and wonderful people that have crossed my path, and I know that will continue to cross my path. And I just believe in people because that's what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to make connections. We're here to love each other. We're here to help each other. That's what it's all about.
Thanks so much for sharing this with us. It's you're talking about community. You're talking about being a member of community.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Daphne.
Thank you, Daphne.
You're welcome. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Amy, another inspiring conversation with someone who has learned how to take the world that she and we live in and to perhaps step back from it long enough to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah. And also the fact that she sort of really understands when the world is so crazy around us, that if we just take a moment, that really resonated with me. Just take a moment. We're right here, right now. We're okay. So we just take a deep breath in and just sort of feel where we're at. So that was kind of reassuring and calming. And if you found that this was a calming and reassuring podcast, we encourage you to subscribe to our podcast, because we love being able to share this with you. So thank you so much for listening and watching.
Thanks for listening to Believe in People. Thanks.